So who remembers this gem from back in January 2017? To those fleeing persecution, terror, and war, Canadians will welcome you regardless of your faith. Diversity is our strength. This was something the Prime Minister tweeted out in response to the whole travel ban from 7 countries that turned out to be largely Muslim, but that had nothing to do with it. It was that, getting documentation from those countries was kind of a pain in the ass. Since that tweet, there's been almost 40,000 illegal immigrants crossing into Canada from the United States. At, I believe the town is Emerson in Manitoba, and of course the now infamous Roxham Road in Quebec. And, it's not only costing the country millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, it's now actually costing my city of Toronto tens of millions, and, well, believe it or not, it's going to start costing lives. I want to apologize. I am a bit under the weather. I don't know if you can tell. But neither of my medications say do not mix with alcohol, so here we are. Now, of the tens of thousands, almost 40,000 people that have crossed the border since January 2017, 3,200 of them have been spread about Toronto's emergency shelter system. 800 more are living in local college dorms, and more are coming. I don't know what's going to happen as we approach the beginning of a new semester. Who's going to be booted from the dorms? The refugees or the students that pay for them? The city has already earmarked $65 million to help pay for housing and resettling. Right? I don't know who you're resettling. Their claims haven't been processed. Some of them haven't been filed. I don't know what's happening here. Refugee agencies, whatever the fuck that means, have rented out hotels. Not hotel rooms, hotels. To house asylum seekers. Asylum seekers is a fancy way of saying irregular immigrants, which is just another way of saying illegals. And these hotels are being rented on the taxpayer dollar. It's getting so bad that some people have suggested closing down community centers that, have like gyms for kids to play basketball after school and run different programs, shut them down and use them as housing facilities for immigrants. Now, our mayor has said he's not going to do that, but when push comes to shove, we'll see what happens. He is demanding basically more federal money to help Toronto deal with this. And that's not really the problem in my mind. The problem is that we're not turning them away at the border. All right, that we're not just like building a wall at Roxham Road and saying no. Hundreds of millions federally, tens of millions, $65 million earmarked for this from just Toronto. And our emergency shelter system. I want to talk about that. I talked about this a few times last year, especially as we were approaching the winter months. Canadian winters can be terrible, just terrible. Like if you've ever been to, Pennsylvania or upstate New York or Minnesota or Siberia, that's you kind of have an idea of what Canadian winters can be. And one of my major concerns in those videos was that we were getting hundreds of people a week, and if they don't slow down, if they don't stop, there's going to be deaths. There's going to be people crossing the Manitoba border. And if it takes you more than a couple of hours walking, you're going to die. You're going to die in a Canadian winter. And I don't know how many people died. I don't know if anyone recorded this or reported on it. But I would be incredibly surprised to discover that the number of people who crossed in the winter that died was 0. And this is where we come back to the emergency shelter system in Toronto. The emergency shelter system in Toronto is for homeless in Toronto. That's what it's for. When the, winter nights get too bad or the summer days get too terrible, the homeless have somewhere to go that's either heated or air conditioned, and they can get themselves a meal and a bed. We lose homeless every year. And again, I don't have the stats on this. We don't really report on it. I'm sure you could find the records of how many homeless people die in the winter due to exposure. Right now, those shelters are taking up 46% of the people in our shelters are asylum seekers. The number of homeless deaths due to exposure in a Toronto winter is going to skyrocket. I wasn't exaggerating when I suggested that it's eventually going to cost lives. It is. This will most definitely cost lives if there's nowhere for these homeless people to go. Right, and I sound like a fucking liberal. We need more homeless shelters. Now, I don't know how anyone expects to house and settle these people, how they expect to afford it, when apparently we can't even afford to detain people illegally crossing the border. Since April 2017, we've only properly detained about 700 illegal crossers, irregular immigrants. If we can't afford to detain them, to set up detention centers and hold people, how the fuck do you expect to afford to settle people in Toronto of all fucking places? Alright, Toronto is so insanely expensive because there's nowhere left to build here. Okay? You want to buy a 600 square foot, 1 bedroom, 1 bath box of a condo, you're looking at least 400 grand. Okay, probably closer to $500,000. I'm living in a middle class neighborhood. And my parents bought this house for $190,000 20 odd years ago. Okay? If we tried to sell this house today, we'd ask $750,000. There's houses in my middle class neighborhood that have sold for $1 million. Toronto of all fucking places. God, like, we just can't afford this. And Trudeau on one hand is telling everybody that wants to come here, yeah, come here illegally, it's all fine, we'll welcome you. On the other hand, he's picking a fight with Trump over trade, right? And the two things seem unrelated, except that together, yeah, no, this man is out to economically cripple us. And I don't know if he's doing it on purpose or he's just a fucking moron. What do you expect when you elect a substitute drama teacher to run your fucking country, all because you just want legalized marijuana? This is my life now.
Relevant links to shit I said in the description. Maybe. I'm Irving Twin. Like, subscribe, or don't. It's a free country. At least it used to be.